Hey, what's up everybody? Retro Gaming Guy here. Today in this video, I'm going to address the question that I get all the time, and that's, should you modify an Arcade1Up cabinet with a Raspberry Pi for retro video game emulation? And the answer really depends on what you're looking to have for a build and what you're looking to spend at this point. But I have done a full tutorial video walking you guys through the entire process of modifying an Arcade1Up cabinet. I'll put a link to that video up here at the top of your screen, as well as in the description of this video in case you want to check it out after you watch this one. So before I dive into the pros and cons, though, I just wanted to point out that I do have a tutorial available that walks you through the entire process, and that may be a good video just to watch, even if you're not sure if you want to actually tackle this project, because in that video, you'll see from start to finish exactly all the steps that you need to do in order to modify your cabinet. So time to talk about the pros and cons, and hopefully by the end of this video, you'll know whether this is a project for you or if it's just too involved or maybe too expensive for you to take on right now. So first and foremost, the biggest pro to upgrading and modifying your Arcade1Up cabinet is the fact that you take a cabinet that potentially plays 1 to 4 games in most cases, and you upgrade it to a arcade cabinet that could play tens of thousands of games. When I did my modification, which you can see in that tutorial video that I mentioned, I took a Final Fight arcade cabinet, which I believe had 4 games. It might have been three or 4. It was about a year and a half ago, so I don't remember all of the specifics, but let's say it was 4 games. I took it from 4 games to over 24,000 games, and I didn't break the bank doing it. So, and that's not exaggerated, literally over 24,000 games, and I could have added more if I wanted to. So that is a massive increase in what is available to you on your cabinet, and you can dive into all your early arcade games the exact same way. There's no issues, there's no problems where the controls don't line up properly with games. Everything can be played really well. You can even get into N64, Dreamcast, and some PSP games on your arcade setup with the buttons and joysticks. So it's a lot of fun to be able to play those type of games that kind of give you that reimagined sort of experience, because they were developed specifically for gamepad controllers. So that's a cool aspect to things. But in addition to obviously the massive increase in games that become available to you on your cabinet, you also are dealing with a finished product. So yes, you're going to be installing new devices within, making some adjustments or modifications, but you're working with a finished product. So you don't have to worry about sanding, priming, searching Home Depot for wood products, glue, screws, nails, any of that stuff. You're dealing with a finished product. So yes, you may need to make additional holes to accommodate additional buttons, which I also had to do in that tutorial video. But the cool thing about that is you drill a hole, and the casing for the buttons actually covers up the edges, so you don't have to go in and paint anything or patch any holes or apply any sort of graphic filler to any of the holes, as long as you do it correctly, of course. But you're dealing with a finished product. You've got your arcade control deck ready to go. You have graphics on the sides, everything's painted up nicely, you have your screen, you don't have to go out and find compatible screens or compatible sizes. Everything is pretty much there that you need. You just have to install a couple of additional things to get those extra capabilities. So that's a really cool and convenient way to approach this. So now, in addition to these positives, we of course have some negative sides to this as well. So the first thing that I want to point out is the quality of Arcade1Up cabinets. They are not the highest quality out there. Now, they're not garbage, they're not crap, but they're not, high quality wood or any sort of really durable materials. They're relatively inexpensive. Particle board in most cases, the vinyl graphic sort of material over the top. It's not super durable. If you're going to be moving your cabinet around a lot, if you're, decide that in a year you're going to move and you have to pack that into a U-Haul, you're likely going to have to really be concerned about whether it's going to make the move, because if things bump into it, you're likely going to get dents. The particle board can crack. It could bow out if any sort of weight is applied to it. They're just not made the same way original arcade cabinets that sat in arcades being used, hours and hours every single day were made. Those were made to stand the test of time and to hold up to a lot of use. Arcade1Up cabinets are made on a budget. They're budget friendly. I compare them to, if you're familiar with IKEA's furniture quality, it's very much in line with that. It's more budget friendly and definitely not the highest quality out there. But not garbage, not crap, just I would say middle of the road in terms of quality. So you have to just consider that. If you were to go the route of building your own cabinet from scratch, you're able to choose the materials that you put into it. So obviously the higher the quality, the more it's going to cost, but you're able to customize it to exactly what you want and put in exactly what you want into that build. So something to certainly consider there. Now, another thing to consider that is potentially a downside is the cost. The cost has gone up over the last year and a half, 2 years. Raspberry Pi 4s, when I did my project that I filmed and did the tutorial from, a Raspberry Pi 4, 4GB RAM, which is the middle of the road in terms of Raspberry Pi 4 computer boards, went for 55 bucks. Costs you more for the cables that you need, cooling fan, micro SD card, all of that, but just looking at the Raspberry Pi itself, 55 bucks, and you were ready to go. Right now, 55 bucks is not what you're going to pay. You're going to pay at least 155 to 200 bucks for the Raspberry Pi alone. So that may be too much for you to invest in this particular project. It may just not be worth it for you, because you also have to consider the cost of your micro SD card, cost of your cables, the Pi itself, as I mentioned, but also the Arcade1Up cabinet. So maybe if you've already purchased the Arcade1Up cabinet, you've had it for a couple years, and now you want to just kick things up a few notches, then maybe this is doable because you're not absorbing all of that cost at once. You've already paid for the cabinet. But if you're coming into this fresh and you have to get the cabinet, you have to get the Pi, the cables, the modification kit, of course, that you need to install, the amp that you're going to have to install, then the cost definitely starts climbing really quickly. So if you have to buy all of that, you may be looking at 600, 700 bucks. It just depends what model from Arcade1Up you go with as well. Some of them go for 500, 600 bucks just for the Arcade1Up cabinet. So it all depends on what you have available to you and what you're able to find and where the market kind of is with all of these extra costs. So that's a big potential downside to this project that definitely needs to be addressed, because it wasn't something that was really a concern a year and a half, 2 years ago. But COVID has come and kind of just changed everything for us. There are supply issues with the Raspberry Pis, to say the least. That's another story entirely, but there's a lot of fluctuations in the market and with costs, even with micro SD cards. I'm constantly buying micro SD cards for my various projects, and the costs are just up and down. A 256 gigabyte card can be $28 one day or $45 the next. Same thing with 512 gigabyte cards. And these are Samsungs that I'm quoting prices for. I've seen for the 512 gigabyte cards anywhere from, I think, like 45 bucks or so all the way up to 79, 80 bucks. So it's pretty crazy that the price fluctuates that much on a regular basis. Most people aren't buying them as often as I am. I'm buying them all the time, and I'm seeing these prices just never stay stable. They're just up and down constantly. So definitely have to consider cost when you're considering whether you want to take on this project. Now, if you went the route of, and this is a little extra information, but if you went the route of building your own cabinet, you also have cost there as well, which has gone up. Building materials and wood costs have gone up. Paint has gone up in price. So you're kind of going to run into that no matter which route you take. But the fact that you have a finished product that you start with an Arcade1Up cabinet versus starting from scratch definitely impacts your timeline as to how long this project is going to take for you and how long it's going to take until you're able to flip the switch on your Raspberry Pi and your monitor and get games up and running and ready to be played. So this is kind of a crash course on the pros and cons of the Arcade1Up mod project. Now, if you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to hit me up in the comment section here or reach out to me directly. Always happy to help you guys out. And I can certainly make recommendations as to what cabinets I would stay away from versus what I would, consider for modification. Actually, you know what? I'll tell you right now what I would stay away from. I would stay away from the cheaper Arcade1Up cabinets like the Pac-Man or Space Invaders. Those have usually just one player on the control deck, so that means that if you modded those, you would have to add a lot more buttons. And if you take a look at the control deck, everything is really close together and much smaller than some of the multiplayer cabinets that are available from Arcade1Up. So you have a smaller area, everything's a little bit more cramped, harder to accommodate cables, buttons, and all of that. Now also, a lot of those cheaper Arcade1Up cabinets have 3:4 aspect ratio instead of 4:3. 4:3 is pretty standard. 3:4 is more of that vertical appearance, so you're going to end up with cutoff on some of your 4:3 games if you have a 3:4 monitor. Now you can change that. You can change the way that it's displayed, but everything kind of just, it's not an easy transition. It doesn't go together as well as you would think, so something to consider there. But if you have a great deal on that, then maybe, you know, those extra hurdles are worth what you're going to save on getting one of those. If you can get it for like $50, then, you know, I certainly wouldn't, you know, advise you against doing that, but just something to consider. You always have to be looking a couple steps ahead when you get an Arcade1Up cabinet with the intention of modding it. So, but I'm also happy to help you guys out with any advice along the way. So feel free to hit me up in the comment section, even though I threw in that little bit of extra information there for you. So that's going to do it for this video though. You guys know the drill. Smash the thumbs up on the video if you found this information helpful to you and you enjoyed the video. And of course, hit that subscribe button to stay in the loop for all future videos here on the Retro Gaming Guy YouTube channel. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your support. I'll see you on the next video.